Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the MedTech Impact Podcast, where you get to hear from leaders and innovators who are shaping the future of medical technologies. I'm your host, Kyle Kruse, alongside...
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn.
And today with us, we have a special guest. We have Gitte Pedersen, the CEO and co-founder of Genomic Expressions. Gitte, welcome to the show.
Welcome,
it's nice
Gitte.
to have you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, yes. Well, of course, as we always do, let's start with an introduction. Who are you? Where do you come from? And tell us a little bit about Genomic Expressions, please.
So I'm Danish, and I'm a scientist. I'm a mother, and I'm a company builder. So between myself and my co-founder is my younger brother. He's got a PhD in genetics, and I have a degree in chemical engineering. There's a little sibling rivalry there. My job is to raise the money. He spends it in the lab, and that's been going on for a while, and now we're starting to make money. That's the short version of the story.
Oh, so cool. I mean, this is probably the first time actually we've heard of a sibling kind of dynamic duo there. So really impressive because, of course, you know, I've got siblings, a lot of us out there do, and sometimes it's easy to butt heads. So what's that like?
It's pretty amazing because I think I grew up in a household where we welcomed disagreement in a collaborative form. So, you know, my mother was a model turned politician, and my dad was a scientist and second generation entrepreneur in his family. By the way, they're all scientists on that lineage. So we discussed the existence of black holes over the dinner table. So you have a lot of conversations, and that was basically how I got vaccinated with the interest in science. And I remember a pivotal moment when I realized that all our cells had the same DNA. I thought that was so cool.
Tell us the whole principle, I guess. You know, what's the problem genomic expression is trying to solve?
Right.
You know, what is the technology itself?
Right. And I would add the other experience was having both my parents suddenly getting diagnosed with cancer, and there was a wake-up call because they were facing what I would call evidence-based death, because if you did textbook standard of care, they would not survive. And that was really hard. So, you know, as two scientists, we're like, we need this. And we looked at the pipeline of drugs in development. And I had a lot of friends that were developing drugs in the biotech industry. I called all of them up. And there wasn't any tools to help us navigate that chaos we entered into. So long story short, that was really where we realized there was a big need for better solutions. And because Morten's technology was always focused on RNA quantification, and everybody knows what RNA here is today, right? So we have mRNA vaccines. Only 2 to 3% of the DNA is translated into RNA because the DNA is just storage of information, and the RNA is really what the cell is doing. It's the information layer between the DNA and proteins that are really the workhorses. So we felt that was much more important information, and that there's several hurdles to make that into a clinical diagnostic application that can translate the data into, okay, these are the drugs that works.
Great. Yeah, so,
for you.
So
but we did that.
Diagnostic and so like early stage detection, right?
So what we, yes. So I would rephrase that. We're not doing early detection. Other people are doing that because it, I wouldn't say simple, but it's a binary detection. Is it there or not? What we are doing is uniquely identifying, quantifying all messenger RNAs as 20,000, and then translating that into clinical action by repurposing drugs on an individual patient basis. So let's say you get diagnosed with cancer, and after a conversation with your doctor, he says, you should take these drugs. This is standard of care, but only 50% response rate. I'm like, it's like flipping a coin. Right. Do I belong to that 50 or the wrong 50? And I want to know which one, right? Because if I'm not going to benefit from this treatment that most likely is going to deteriorate my health, wipe out my immune system and take my hair off, then I want something else. I want to go into a clinical study. Those algorithms doesn't exist. And it's so obvious to me because you can there's a book of them. They just never get clinically validated. And there's a bunch of reasons for that I won't go into here. But the other thing you want to know, okay, so now I'm not going to go into the textbook version because I'm in the wrong 50%. Then what? And that's a question we can help answer because we can identify already approved drugs, not just one. We can look at certain mechanisms. I don't want to go into too many details, but there's the chemo, the targeted, and the immune therapy. It's only immune therapy that really has very long benefits at this point. If you teach your immune system to recognize the cancer, the risk of recurrence is less. But not all tumors respond to immune therapy, and then you need something else.
And so you're taking this novel approach, and I'm sure for our listeners, you mentioned messenger RNA, and of course, it's been around, but I think more and more to the point you made through the pandemic, people became aware about the potential of what it can do.
Yeah.
What does that look like from the patient perspective? Like, so if a patient comes to Genomic, what's that interaction like?
So first of all, they need a prescription from the doctor for us to analyze the tumor. But we need a slice of the tumor tissue. It's most likely a paraffin embedded block, or we can just get a scroll. They have to contact the pathology department of where their last biopsy was performed, and then get them to send it to us. Those are the two steps. And then that's it. We will analyze it and send the report back to the doctor, and then they can discuss the results with the doctor. The doctor is ultimately the one that's going to kind of advise the patients on which treatment they're going to take.
And are patients able to access your platform today?
Yes, in breast cancer. We started in breast first. We just got a grant in rare cancers because there are hurdles. If we repurpose a drug that is approved in breast to an ovarian cancer patient, the insurance company may not want to pay. And I thought very hard, how can I fix this problem? Because we can see that for those patients that are running out of treatment options, we need these other additional treatments, or we may even want to move them into first line. So we planning to set up a study where we're focusing on rare cancers, and in my world, all cancers are rare, but that's a side note. According to the NCI, it's every cancer that has less than, I think, 20 or 40,000 cases a year. And again, we just got the grant, so we can do that study, and that will give us data to repurpose those drugs and increase the label, so that these drugs can be used in these patients.
That's so great. In terms of you, so you're helping patients find the best treatments. So what's that turnaround? Because you mentioned obviously, you're getting the materials.
Right. It would take them longer to get it sent to us than it takes us to analyze it. That's the reality of it. It's a couple of weeks, and then we again send the report back, and then obviously then the next stage you have to get approvals and access to that treatment. through your institution.
You know, you talk about the coverage aspect, right? Insurance.
Yes.
And you know, it's kind of interesting. That's just such a huge challenge, reimbursement and stuff.
Yeah.
And for you know, med tech companies. And you know, it's interesting though, because it sounds like, you know, if you're helping provide a better diagnosis, and if you're, you know, helping identify the best treatment options so that, you know, they're not wasting time and money and appointments and drugs that aren't helping, and that, you know, it sounds like there would be a significant benefit. Is that kind of the approach, or am I just way off? I'm trying to
connect
the dots.
And so,
no,
you're not. But I think that we are in an industry that is driven by data, and data for one patient is just not enough, right? You need data from a cohort, and we need to generate that data. And that's why I'm, you know, fundraising, because unless we get that data, there won't be coverage, there won't be support. That doesn't mean that we can't offer it now, because patients can, and some patient can and will pay out of pocket, but that's certainly not ideal. And that's why we want to get to that next stage where that is not there's no longer any friction there. We do need to get to that stage.
And is the focus still in the breast cancer?
Rare cancer would be, again, per definition, breast cancer is not a rare cancer. There's 250 cases a year.
Right.
But most of them is actually because we detected earlier. And so there's other tests to opt out of chemo for those patients. The ones that are detected later, there's actually some very effective drugs. But there are patients that are progressing, and the segment that typically have less treatment options are the triple negative breast cancer patients, because they don't have access to targeted therapy in the first line of treatment. And those patients progress faster and have less favorable outcomes. Those are the segment that we're focusing on for OneRNA in breast. But then everything else that has less than, I think, again, 20,000 cases, which is a lot. You know, I think ovarian cancer is one of them. That's one of the cancers that we are we already started looking into, because for non-scientists, it probably shouldn't be surprising, but let me just say it. You know, breast cancer, a significant population of breast cancers are driven by hormones. And that will also be the case for ovarian cancer, but we haven't approved the drugs for ovarian cancer. But it shouldn't be surprising, right? These are the reproductive organs that are modulated and controlled through hormones. So we hope that, and it's supported in literature, that we can repurpose some of those drugs.
And how do you feel when you're thinking about these challenges you're talking about? So obviously raising funding is part of that, but I guess across the industry, accessing data is still a big challenge, because obviously
accessing data or payer support.
I think the data specifically, because I think, you know, there's a lot of data out there, but actually getting access to it is very challenging.
Yeah, I think that as an industry, we have to find new ways to collaborate around sharing the data. I firmly believe that at the end of the day, the patient should own the data. That's also the case now, but there are actors that will try to get you to sign off on everything, and then use the data in a way that you didn't know, or sometimes they literally say they won't use the data in that way. FTC just went after a couple of those companies, so you can just Google that. I think this is really problematic. I think it's very important that patients can trust providers. We are a provider per definition, that they will keep that data on the logs and not sell it to advertisers. So there are certain things that needs to be in place in order to share data. among providers, there are systems in place to enable that. It still needs the patient's consent. But you're touching upon something that is super, super important.
Yeah, huge potential to improve areas like that. And Kyle, something we hear a problem again and again for founders who come on is obviously this fundraising aspect. And so, Gitte, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about, your personal experiences in trying to fundraise for your company.
Yeah. So we had a fantastic JP Morgan in 2020, and I came home with an upper respiratory disease, and I could, in the follow-up, sense that everybody was kind of treading water, and then I couldn't get a COVID test in New York, so we pivoted into COVID testing in record time and filed our own FDA EUA. So we made money instead of raising money for a while. Now we are still in a place where, in order to make our next pivot, it is necessary for us to fundraise, because there's delay in payers. We need to finance this study that I stipulated, and then that payer support will be there for the patients and for us. You have to build a business that's sustainable as a business person, right? But when I hit the market in 2023, it was less favorable, right? We decided not to pull back this time because we are ready. And, I've been able to get in front of people. We're still able to get in front of people. Everybody's kind of, again, treading water. But this time we keep banging on the doors. So, yeah.
And probably circling full back, Kyle, we touched on this earlier about Gitte's leadership, and this is probably the perfect time to sort of touch on your determination and, how you're just banging on doors, as you say, and making things happen.
Yeah, it doesn't happen if you're afraid of contacting people, right?
Spoken like a real sales professional right there.
Yeah. So I'm actually, I love people. I love having conversations, and I'm an extrovert, so that helps me. But it's also a navigation thing. What kind of investors are the right fit for who we want to become. So one of the things that I say to other founders is that you become who you pitched your investors. So if this is the company and this is how this is who you're gonna become. So it's important that you have the right investors on board. I've been very successful on getting smaller amounts funded through high net worth individuals and angel groups. And I will several times, this is a word of encouragement. Most of my bets were wrong. What does that mean? It means that you have to throw a lot of mud on the wall, and then you don't know which one is going to stick, and then take it when it sticks. Yeah. So it's a sales process, and you need to manage it, and you need to follow up and follow through.
Yeah, and that it's really cool because you have just such the right attitude and mindset. And so it's no surprise where, I'm really, you didn't really mention the challenges of maybe being a woman leader, right? And there's a lot of times where, we hear about those challenges where, there's a woman that's starting a company, she's the leader, and maybe you're not giving that respect, but it's just, it's so cool.
I will say I have always been able to obtain respect. I never felt disrespected.
Yeah.
I felt sometimes that I was wasting my time. There was a hidden agenda in certain meetings, and that was a waste of my time. Yeah. So I think that no matter whether you're a man or a woman, you have to kiss a lot of frogs. I don't know how else to say it.
It's a numbers game here. Come
It
on,
is a numbers game.
Yeah.
And so if you don't get discouraged, and you cannot be discouraged by rejection, obviously, but you can ask why, right? So that you can use that information to kind of modify your pitch, or to maybe modify your target. And we have done the latter, right? So in the beginning, when we have some people on the board that knows a lot of VCs, and it was like, we only invest in drugs. We only invest in drugs. I'm like, why are we still talking to these guys if they only invest in drugs? And stop talking to them.
Sure.
Exactly. You're not a drug company. Okay. So, but then it's also finding fundamentally diagnostics is super unsexy. Okay. So if you pitch this as a diagnostic company, you're also not going to get anywhere. And that have nothing to do with my gender. It's just the circumstances that the company's in. And we have to navigate that. I think that we back to there's a business model, throw in a $20 million bill to develop a drug, sell it for $1 billion or more to a pharma company. That's very well known. It's much less well established that you can do the same for diagnostics. There's fewer cases, there's fewer examples. It have happened, but it's much more difficult. And so what we have to prove is that, through the strategy that we're putting together, the numbers that we supported with, that we believe we can do it. And I think what we did during the pandemic kind of support that. We're not completely a bunch of nerds that don't know how to sell, because we took a company that was grant funded to a commercial stage clinical lab in record time. I can recommend it. Sleepless nights and a lot of efforts getting things done in a extremely short time frame, but we did it. And we built a lot of infrastructure that we now can use to do that.
You made such an interesting point, though, that I feel like is so relatable, Richard, especially like all the companies, right, that we see and talk to, a part of Impact and M2D2 and all these companies coming to market. I thought what was really interesting that you said was that you don't, it's not like sexy to say like, oh, we're a diagnostic company. So you got to find a way to better communicate, your platform, your technology. It's so funny. It's so relatable because I mean, over here, right, what we do every day, if we say, oh, we build this and this, it's like, oh, okay, so does everyone else, right? So what is it really truly that's unique and special about you? And I think that's such a valuable point for any leader, right? Bringing a product or technology to market. And I just wanted to shed some light on that. But I'm interested, because we're always fascinated. Here you are today. You've brought part of your platform to market today. It's available in the women's health space for breast cancer diagnostic tool, and you're raising capital to go ahead and continue to develop tests for other forms of cancer, right? So what does that future look like, from now and like in the next 5 years? Where do you guys see yourself in those 5 years?
So I'm so super excited about the next 5 years, because I'm fueled by having the ability to help the patient. So that's a big part of my excitement. The other part is that we have shown that we can develop drugs using mRNA vaccine technology in 9 months from code to product. I'm delivering the code, okay? And my vision is why are we trying to make people look alike? Your tumor, back to, I said, every tumor is rare. We need to make individualized cancer vaccine development. And here's the good news. It is cheap. It is damn cheap to do nucleic acid-based chemistries compared to all the, I come from the protein world, fermentation, you have all this impurities in the fermentation broth that you then have to, this was my first job, so I know I had my fingers in it, that you have to remove. And here we are, it's just code. And we know we can inject it, and this code will translate into the drug inside your body. It's amazing. So this is my vision. And because, and I will probably be deemed like a complete lunatic if it wasn't because mRNA vaccines have now been approved in this kind of record time, and we believe we can do this. So I think there's so many technologies that are just, there.
Right. That's like the future of personalized medicine too. It's said over and over, right? Is treating specific individuals, especially in the world of cancer. So that's incredible.
Kyle, I'm feeling inspired. I know we've covered a lot today, Gitte, but I wondered if you could share with our listeners, if you're going to give any key advice for people thinking about starting a business who are running an early stage biotech or medical device company, what would that be, that sort of leading thought for them?
I think that it's hard, but it's so much easier if it's something that you really, really care about, because there will be these, it's not, honestly, every time you get to a top and you can see over it, there's another mountain. Okay. So, and there's a lot of stuff that happens in a company. I tell my husband I have a shit box, and all the noise goes into the shit box, and then I just deal with it. Okay. I don't attach any emotions to shit. It's just shit. Sorry about that.
No,
but you just have to clean your head from shit.
You gotta roll with it.
And just deal with it. Just deal with it. Because and when you go through these ups and downs, the roller coaster ride, it's easier to do that when you really care about what you do. I think that is, that's very, very true. I could have been an entrepreneur in other places too, and I just don't care about it.
Well, your motivation is coming through loud and clear.
Gitte, this has been quite the conversation, and it's really been a pleasure having you on here today. It's just so refreshing to have, we're all people, we're human here, right? So you talk about the shit box, you say things how it is, and we need more of that in this world. So having you on today, was a real treat, and we can't thank you enough. So thank you.
Very cool.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
I'm going to ask you so much, Gitte. Please tell us, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way? I mean, I see your Twitter code.
Yeah, I'm super easy to get hold of on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter, DNA Barcode, and through our website. And if you want to email, the company is info@genomicexpression.com, and we will get back to you. Okay.
Perfect.
Super.
So we're very responsive.
Well, on that note, I think that'll do it. So Gitte Pedersen, CEO and co-founder of Genomic Expression. Once again, thank you so much for coming on our show. Can't wait to share your story with the world. And until next time, I'm Kyle Kruse.
And I'm Richard Meiklejohn.
And you're watching and listening to the MedTech Impact Podcast.
Keep innovating.